fellow Toastmasters and welcome guests. I'm going to try something a little bit different tonight. I'm gonna mix it up and try something new. I'm going to introduce myself, and then I'm going to have two parts of my speech. The first part's going to be my introduction, and the second part is going to be the meat and potatoes. And the second part is a comedy set. I am working on a comedy set that's based on a humorous speech contest that I gave in 2016. And so I'm trying to take this 7-minute speech and shrink it down to be a 4-minute comedy set, because at the place that's the open mic that I'm going to go, that's how long the comedy sets last. So why would I want to do stand-up comedy? It's something that I've always done. It's something that I've always wanted to do. And it's something that I put off because, in a word, I'm scared. Don't get scared very often, but for some reason I'm scared of comedy. Comedy, to me, is so pure and real. You know how well you're doing when you're doing a comedy set, because if you're making people laugh, it's working. And if you're not making people laugh, it's not working. Comedy don't lie. So why have I finally got inspired to do some comedy? Well, let me tell you about my friend Dan. My friend Dan, a.k.a. Dan the Man, most inspirational dude I know. He got ran over by a car when he was 7 years old, and he has horrible cerebral palsy. He has a hard time talking. He walks with a limp, and but this guy, he works 3 jobs. He works for the city of Escondido for 12 hours a week. He works for a place called Tony Pepperoni's, spinning a sign for an hour a day, and then he works at another place called the Kettle Coffee and Tea for an hour every day. This guy works 7 days a week, and he has the best attitude I've ever heard. He is just such an inspiration to me, and he also does stand-up comedy. This guy has a hard time talking, but he gets the mic in his hand and something magic happens. It's incredible to watch the transformation. He is funny as heck. He makes the crowds roar. He's just the most inspirational guy that I've been around. So with that, I'm going to go just take a second, and then I'm going to start. Is there any runners here? Any runners out here? I just get raise a hand. You ever had a runner's high, Michael? You know what that is? Yeah, a runner's high is like the greatest thing in the world. If you're in shape, it doesn't happen unless you're in shape, but it's the greatest thing in the world. You run, and like 5 or 6 miles in, it's like you're running on air. You can just run with the wind, and it feels like you can run forever. So, what I'm going to talk about today is not a runner's high. What I'm going to talk about today, it's a runner's low. I'm not sure, have you ever had one of those, Michael? Runner's low? Maybe. Well, the runner's low that I'm talking about, I used to train for marathons. It was many years ago. I don't look much like a marathon runner anymore. But it was many years ago. I would go out with my buddies, and we would leave for my house. And every time I would run, I would have to plan it around a construction site. Now, why was that? In a word, outhouse. Every morning when we ran together, I would have to stop and use the porta potty. Now, it wasn't a number 1 thing, guys. This was a number 2 thing. I can use any tree or bush. I'm a male, and so we would start this run, and about a mile in was where the construction site was, and I would jump in the porta potty and do my thing, and my buddies would throw rocks at the porta potty and slam it on the side and heckle me, and I would leave that porta potty feeling sad and empty. So as I progressed, we got up to the day of the run, or the weekend of the run, and we went up to Salt Lake. And before the run, you go get your number, and you have this carbo load feast, which is to get you ready for the run. And somewhere during the day, it occurred to me there was something I could do about my little problem. I was going to do a cleanse. So the first thing I did to start this cleanse was apple cider vinegar. If 1 shot apple cider vinegar is good, 3 shots is actually way better. And if apple cider vinegar is good, then brand cereal must really make it work. So I went and bought my favorite kind of brand cereal. It's called Kraft and Oat Bran. and I ate nearly the whole box. Well, it's time to go to bed, and so just before I went to bed, that's when movement number 1 happened, and I was thrilled. Everything was working the way that I wanted it to work, and I was going to be able to run without my problem. So, but in the morning when we woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go, that's when movement number 2 happened. And I wasn't as excited about this one as I was the first one, but I took it as it came. And then I got up to the start of the starting line, and everybody's jumping around, the lights are flashing, and there's music pumping, and that's when movement number 3 happened. So I jump into the porta potty, and literally they're counting down for the race to start. 5, 4, 3, 2, and at 1, I'm running out of the outhouse doors. And I cross the starting line with everybody else. Well, mile number 1, that's when movement number 4 happened. And at this point, I knew this was a disaster. 8 more times on the marathon route I had to stop. 8 more times. When I finally finished, I was an hour longer than I expected to finish. And I was absolutely crushed. So the moral of the story is, guys, when you have something big coming up, whether it's a job interview, whether it's a race, or whether it's a speech, don't switch it up too much, because you never know what's going to happen. Thank you very much, Madam Toastmaster.